The moment Elena stepped into the ballroom, she felt it. The eyes. They didn't just glance. They clung. Whispers rippled across the silk-draped room like smoke curling around crystal chandeliers. And then she saw him. Bryce, her husband, flanked by photographers, board members, and the press, and Camille. The woman on his arm was half Elena's age, twice as bold, and wore the same gown Elena had designed last spring. Not inspired by, no, the same one. Only this time, it sparkled on someone else's skin. Someone younger, hungrier, and utterly victorious. Elena froze mid-step. Every instinct told her to turn back. But instead, she smiled, a polite, almost pleasant curve of the lips, and moved forward, one measured step at a time. Tonight wasn't about her. It was the launch of the company's new collection. The company she'd helped build. The brand she once believed she was part of. Bryce's voice echoed across the room like a sharp blade. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, lifting his glass, "a toast to new beginnings." He didn't look at her. Not once. Then, as the music began to play, Bryce held out his hand, not to Elena, his wife of 6 years, but to Camille. She giggled, breathless, and took it. They moved to the center of the room. The lights dimmed, the violins swelled. And the first dance, once Elena's honor, belonged to the woman who had replaced her. Elena stood perfectly still at the edge of the room, a crystal flute in hand, her knuckles pale against the stem. "Is that Camille?" Someone whispered nearby. "Didn't you hear? She's the new creative director. Bryce just made it official." She was her assistant, right? Ouch. The words didn't hurt, not anymore. They were background noise, just like the music, just like the clinking of champagne glasses, just like the applause when Camille kissed Bryce on the cheek and he smiled like he'd won the world. He hadn't. Not yet. Not completely. Elena took a slow sip of her drink and let the bitterness spread across her tongue. Because tonight, something broke. And in the silence that followed, something else began. Before we jump in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed. Because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. The driver was waiting outside with the engine running, but Elena didn't get in. She stood at the top of the marble stairs outside the ballroom, the cold night air brushing against her bare shoulders. Her fingers still clutched the invitation card, now crumpled, its golden print smudged from the sweat of her palm. Camille, her assistant for 3 years. She used to call Elena her mentor, her inspiration. Now she was calling Bryce darling in front of a crowd that once applauded Elena. She let out a slow breath, watching it fog in the air like a ghost leaving her chest. Was it rage, humiliation, or something colder, older, betrayal layered over exhaustion? "Elena?" She turned. A man in a dark wool coat stepped out of the shadows. "William?" He looked exactly as she remembered. Sharp eyes, calm voice, and a posture that made people listen before he even spoke. He had been her client once, a quiet collector of fine jewelry, a man with an eye for beauty and a mind for value. "I saw what happened in there," he said gently. "Did you?" she replied, not hiding the edge in her voice. "Then you know I've officially been erased." William stepped closer. "No, you were never meant to be part of that world. It was too small for you." She looked away, jaw tight. "Tell that to the board that just replaced me with a girl who can't tell a sapphire from a piece of glass." "I'm not here to offer pity," he said. "I'm here to offer something else." Elena's eyes flicked back to him. "What? A studio," William said simply. "Funded, staffed, yours." She blinked. "You're serious?" "I've seen your early work. I own your early work. Before you diluted your style to fit into Bryce's market vision. I want that Elena back. The one who took risks. The one who didn't flinch." She stared at him, stunned by the offer, and terrified by the flicker of hope it sparked inside her. "Bryce will destroy me if I try to compete," she whispered. William smiled. "Then let's not compete." A pause. "Let's dominate." For the first time that night, Elena felt her chest rise with something other than pain. It wasn't confidence. Not yet. But it was something close. And it was enough. She looked at him, her eyes steady. "When do we start?" William's answer was simple. "Tomorrow." The sun hadn't yet risen when Elena arrived at the modest building tucked between a florist and a cafe in the quieter part of the city. It didn't look like much from the outside. Frosted glass windows, a discreet brass plaque that simply read Ardent Studio. But when she stepped inside, it felt like something different. Clean walls, natural light, Empty desks waiting to be filled. A scent of cedar and fresh coffee hung in the air like a soft promise. She ran her fingers across one of the workbenches. New tools, untouched sketch pads. The silence wasn't intimidating, it was thrilling. "You're early," William's voice called from the back room. "I didn't sleep." He stepped out, holding 2 coffees. "Neither did I." They sat in silence for a moment, sipping slowly, letting the moment settle. "I haven't sketched in months," she admitted. "I'm scared I've forgotten how to start." "You haven't," William replied. "And even if you did, who cares? We'll start again." He slid a plain leather sketchbook toward her. On the first page was a single sentence in his handwriting. "You are not broken, you are becoming." Her throat tightened, she flipped to a fresh page, picked up a pencil, and without overthinking, drew a curve, bold, imperfect, but alive. The lines poured out of her like rain after drought. By the time sunlight filtered fully through the windows, Elena had filled 5 pages, designs that didn't follow market trends, designs that had been waiting, buried under years of compromise. At noon, Victoria arrived. Elena raised an eyebrow. "The Victoria from Aurelia Fine Arts?" "In the flesh," she said, grinning. "William told me we were building something brilliant. I want in." Within an hour, more people came. Young designers, gemstone dealers, even a retired artisan who had once worked for Elena back in her first year. It was like watching a shattered part of herself slowly reassemble into something stronger. They worked through the day, laying out plans for a debut collection. It wasn't about impressing the boardrooms anymore. It was about reclaiming something lost. That evening, William handed her a small box. "What is it?" she asked. "Something to remind you who you are." Inside was a necklace she had designed 8 years ago, her first signature piece. A sapphire pendant, raw and asymmetrical, set in brushed gold. It had disappeared during one of Bryce's strategic rebrandings. "You kept it?" she asked, stunned. He nodded. "I bought it the day you released it. I always knew you'd come back to this." Elena closed the box slowly, her fingers lingering on its edge. For the first time in years, she felt the weight of her own name again. And it no longer felt like a burden. It felt like a beginning. The day of the debut arrived sooner than she expected. 2 months of quiet fire had burned through Elena, late nights sketching until dawn, long days revising prototypes with calloused fingers and tearful eyes. But never once did she doubt her purpose. For the first time, every step forward felt like stepping into her own skin. The venue was small but elegant, a private gallery in Soho with tall windows and soft spotlights illuminating each jewelry display like a sacred altar. Her new line was named Ashes in Bloom, a collection born of pain, rebirth, and unapologetic elegance. As guests arrived, murmurs rose. "Is that really Elena Voltaire? I thought she vanished after the divorce. She looks radiant." Behind the curtain, Elena paced, her heart pounding in her ears. Her palms were damp. It wasn't stage fright. It was something deeper. What if this failed? What if this moment, everything she'd built since walking away from Bryce, just crumbled? Then William stepped into the room. "You ready?" he asked gently. "No," she whispered, voice trembling. "But I'm going anyway." He smiled. "That's how I know you're going to be unforgettable." As the host called her name, Elena stepped onto the stage. The room fell silent. She wore a black silk dress, simple, powerful. Around her neck shimmered the same raw sapphire pendant William had returned to her, now slightly redesigned, less polished, more honest. "Thank you for coming," she began, her voice soft but clear. "This collection is not just jewelry. It's what remains after a woman is burned to the ground and decides not to become ash, but light." The applause was thunderous. By the end of the evening, 3 pieces had already sold to private collectors. Victoria raised a champagne glass toward her across the room. Elena raised hers in return, their eyes meeting with shared triumph. But just as she turned to speak with a journalist, she felt the air shift. The room had gone slightly quieter. She looked up and saw Bryce, standing near the back, alone. No entourage, no new wife draped over his arm. He looked thinner, older, like someone who'd lost more than sleep. Their eyes met, and for a long moment, neither moved. Then Bryce walked toward her. The crowd parted without a word. "Elena," he said, voice low, "you look unstoppable." She tilted her head, a half-smile playing at her lips. "That's because I am." "Elena," Bryce said again, quieter now. I didn't know you were back in the design world. She glanced at him, calm and composed. That's because you never looked back once you threw me away. He flinched. The people around them kept their distance, but their ears leaned in subtly. Bryce hesitated, then pulled something from his coat pocket, a thin envelope. I saw your name on the exhibit list. I wasn't sure if you'd want this. He held it out. It's the deed to your father's workshop. You never transferred it, but I held on to it. I thought maybe you'd come back for it. Her breath caught. That workshop had been everything, where she'd first learned to solder, to sketch, to fail. The place Bryce said was a financial liability before he sold all the tools and gutted the walls for renovations that never happened. She took the envelope slowly, eyes never leaving his. Why now? She asked. He looked down at his shoes. Because ever since the divorce, things haven't exactly gone the way I imagined. Investors pulled out. Dina left. My name doesn't open doors like it used to. I came here tonight because I needed to see you win, to understand what I threw away. Her fingers clenched the envelope. She wanted to scream, to spit out every sleepless night, every insult she'd swallowed whole while wearing a smile. But instead she said, "Thank you for the paper. Keep the guilt." He blinked. "Elena," she stepped closer, voice steel-edged. "You didn't break me, Bryce. You sharpened me." And with that, she turned away. Back to the journalist, back to her exhibit, back to her life. Later that night, as the gallery dimmed and the last guest trickled out, William appeared beside her. He handed her a warm coffee, the exact way she liked it. "You handled him like a queen," he said, his eyes full of quiet pride. She took a sip, then leaned her head briefly on his shoulder. "I didn't do it for revenge," she murmured. "I know. I did it so I'd never forget who I am again." William didn't speak. He didn't need to. Because in that moment, under the fading lights of her triumph, Elena didn't need validation. She had reclaimed everything, and this time it was hers alone. Elena stood at the edge of the rooftop garden the studio had built just for the design team, a hidden sanctuary above the city's chaos. Below, traffic murmured like a distant storm, but up here, the air was still. She leaned against the railing, watching the lights blur into one another. For years, she had imagined this moment, when the pain would stop echoing, when the past would loosen its grip on her chest. But she hadn't expected it to feel so quiet. No fire, no tears. Just peace. A soft shuffle behind her. "I figured I'd find you here," William said, carrying a box wrapped in deep blue silk. "You disappeared after the last guest left. I needed a minute," she said, not turning, "to let it all settle." He joined her at the railing. "You're not just back, Elena. You're at the top." She smiled faintly. "Funny how that doesn't feel like revenge anymore. Just freedom." He held out the box. "What's this?" she asked. "Something I've been saving," he said. For the right moment. She untied the ribbon, lifted the lid, and gasped. Inside was a necklace, unlike any she had ever designed or worn. Delicate yet bold, it mirrored the very first sketch she had ever drawn as a teenager, the one she abandoned when Bryce told her it was too sentimental to be marketable. Her fingers trembled. "You remembered this?" she whispered. "I found it in your old sketchbook," he said softly. "Tucked behind a page. You drew it before you ever met him, before your dreams got reshaped to fit someone else's vision." Elena touched the pendant, heart pounding. "Put it on," he said. She turned her back to him, lifting her hair. His hands were gentle as he fastened the clasp. When she turned around again, her eyes shimmered. "You brought her back," she said. "The girl I used to be." William met her gaze. She never left. She just needed someone to remind her. A long silence stretched between them, rich, full of everything unsaid. Then she took a breath. "I've been offered a seat on the International Design Council. It's in Paris. They want me to curate a mentorship program for young women in jewelry design." William's smile was instant, proud, encouraging. "Then go," he said. "You were never meant to stay in anyone's shadow, not even mine." Her throat tightened. "I want you with me," she admitted. "But I don't want to make the same mistake again. Asking someone to follow me into something I haven't figured out." He stepped closer. "I'm not asking for guarantees, Elena. I just want to walk beside you." Tears burned the corners of her eyes. "Even if I stumble, I'll be there to steady you." She laughed softly, burying her face briefly against his shoulder. When she looked up again, the city had changed, or maybe she had. For the first time, the future didn't feel terrifying. It felt wide open. "I'll go," she said. But I'll come back, not because I have to, but because I want to. He leaned in and kissed her gently. No spectacle, no grand gesture. Just two people meeting in the quiet after a storm. And when they walked down from that rooftop side by side, Elena didn't feel like she was starting over. She felt like she was finally beginning. 2 weeks later, she boarded a flight to Paris. Not as someone escaping a broken past, but as a woman stepping into her purpose. The mentorship program quickly became more than just a career move. It became a mission. Elena poured her heart into guiding young designers, many of them women who, like her, had been told they were too emotional, too fragile, too ambitious. She saw pieces of her younger self in their eyes and gave them what no one had ever given her: unwavering belief. Word spread fast. Articles dubbed her the Phoenix of Paris. Invitations to speak, to teach, to lead followed. One afternoon, during a masterclass, a student shyly approached her with a velvet box. "I designed this," the girl whispered, "but I was too afraid to show anyone, until I heard your story." Inside was a delicate ring, etched with vines and fire. Elena blinked back tears. "You have no idea what this means to me," she said. Later that night, she wrote in her journal, something she hadn't done in years. "I thought revenge was the point. That success would only matter if he saw it. But now I realize, true victory isn't proving someone wrong. It's proving to yourself that you were right to believe in your own worth all along." Back home, William was waiting, as always, with warm coffee and that look in his eyes that told her, "You are safe now. You are loved." At the next World Jewelry Exhibition, Elena took the stage again, not just as a designer, but as a keynote speaker. The spotlight hit her face, and she stood tall, proud, radiant. Down in the crowd, William's eyes never left her. Neither did Stamford's. Disheveled, defeated, sitting alone near the back, he looked like a ghost of the man he once was. But Elena didn't flinch. She didn't even pause. Because some people were meant to be in your past to teach you who you never want to be. As she held up her latest creation, an intricate piece inspired by the necklace William had given her, Elena's voice rang out. "To every woman who was ever told she was too much, too emotional, too soft, or too loud, this is for you. Let them call it revenge. I call it rising." The applause shook the room. And that night, under the Paris stars, William knelt on one knee, not because she needed rescuing, but because he wanted to walk with her through every chapter to come. She didn't hesitate. "Yes," she whispered, "but only if we write the story together. And this time the story wouldn't be about survival. It would be about joy. It would be about power. It would be hers." This story is a powerful reminder that even after betrayal and humiliation, a woman can reclaim her voice, rebuild her life, and rise stronger than ever. Elena's journey shows us that true strength isn't about revenge. It's about rediscovering your worth and choosing joy on your own terms. If this story touched you, share your thoughts below. Comment 2 if you loved it, 7 if it wasn't for you. And if you'd like more stories like this, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Your support means everything.